Go ahead, Diane.
Well, you were um, speaking, I guess, mostly in your talk rather than the meditation. Um,
Kind
it's
of did a
me.
little meditation in the talk tonight.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I'm thinking about turning off the left brain. You're talking about softening and
Mhm.
sort of letting go of what we know is the limits of our hand, and sort of right brain people feel more connected to what's around them. And uh,
Right.
that's what I was thinking of while you were describing softening.
Yeah, thank you. That's a frame of reference that can be helpful, the left brain and the right brain.
Yeah.
You may have read that book by Jill Bolte Taylor.
Yes.
Is her name?
Yes.
There was a woman who had a stroke on the left side of her brain. And so suddenly she was completely incapacitated verbally. And and she wrote a book about what it was like to have only the right side of her brain. And she had lived as a very left brain person. Um, and she was a researcher, I believe. So she she knew what was happening as it was happening. She had researched the brain when she had her stroke, and she described some of the things that Diane is just talking about. The way that when you get the left brain out of the way, you don't feel the limits to yourself that your ideas place on you. You don't feel the limits to the body. You don't feel disconnected from everything that's around you. There's a unified experience of being. Um, and so this meditation, yes, is very much doing that. That's part of what it's doing. So thanks. So I'm gonna repeat the homework from last week that I asked you to do. To practice softening walking, what it would be to walk softly, um, and as well to gaze softly. I'm curious if anybody did it and what you noticed about it. Sure, Mickey.
Yeah, hi. First, I'm going to go in a little different direction around softening.
Sure.
Um, so the day before our last class, I had gotten back from being in a place in rural Alabama. Then we had our class that night. I was in Alabama on Monday, class on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I wake up with chigger bites over a lot of my torso. Really itch.
Never had them.
We had just talked about softening. So what I did was just really try to soften around those sensations. It was definitely helpful, definitely helpful. So it's a recommendation if you get sugar bites, soften. I mean, it could be applied to other sensations, but for me, it was so immediate. Um, having just heard you and then having these bites, it's almost completely gone now. Um, and then with the walking, I've just been thinking about softening a whole lot this week. And when I do the walking and I think about it, I become very present in the sensations in my feet, which brings me immediately into presence. You're feeling the sensations. But it's also struck me as a kind of an attitude, softening as an attitude.
Yes.
And I really like it. It's very much the opposite for me of striving. And it's just something that I think of off and on during the day at this whole week. I don't know if that's where you're going to be going with this, but
It is.
it's almost something I can't explain. You'll explain it. But anyway, this has been a very useful theme for me. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, I'm glad you've gotten over your trigger bites.
Yes.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah. And yes, with unpleasant things in the body, this is really helpful. And Mickey's, you're right. it's as much about softening the mind as it is anything else, especially like when you're feeling an itch, it's your own mind's generation of aversion that you're relaxing, something's happening I don't like, doesn't feel good. We kind of tighten around it, and we like, there's something in the mind that happens as well as the body in that. And so when you relax that, the attitudinal thing, it all goes better. You're reminding me this summer, I'm a gardener, so I'm out there a lot, and it was pretty wet this summer, in case anybody didn't notice. And so I'm always getting bitten out there in the garden, and it's not just mosquitoes. I don't know what all is out there, but, and sometimes they produce these things that last for a long time. I don't know what's biting me, but, and I've just kind of begun to accept that. And, but I notice the same thing is with those itches, if I just soften around it, and that it's much easier. And if it also helps because I don't scratch then. And if you don't scratch, then you don't like activate all the what is it in there, histamine or something that makes it itch more. So in some ways it's a strategy, but it's also just like, being okay about it. All right, who else? Anybody else walk softly or gaze softly? Walk softly and carry a big stick? I forget who said that. Or what you noticed in the feeling the hands tonight. Okay, Nate, go ahead.
Hey guys. Yeah, with the softening of the gaze, I was talking with a friend about this. It's almost as though in doing that, I'm able to see more intently. And it's like I'm actually tracing the outline of what I'm looking, but it's not like a straining sensation. It's just like there it is. I'm taking it all in. I do this a lot when I'm walking around, and it's amazing what you can see, the clarity of everything on the ground, the color of the flowers, things like that. And it's great to examine things closely, but at the same time, yeah, this has been something that I've been kind of practicing for some time now. I heard about it from a therapist friend, and yeah, it has helped me come to some epiphanies. Like, wow, that tree's gigantic. Can't imagine how long it's been around and what it has seen. Things like that. It just kind of makes my world a little larger. Um, and you touched on it a little bit ago about it was kind of in the closing, sending the body like gratitude. And a couple nights ago in my meditation, I was set up in just such a way, and this is not to gloat, maybe just growth, but being intent on the breath. And I had this epiphany where I was like, wow, this has been such a companion. And I kind of went through the files in my head of the memories. And, not that I gazed at them, but just glancing back at all the times that the breath has been with me, like all these big changes in my life. I was like, wow, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
As silly as that sounds. But yeah, it's amazing. Just all, like you said, all the things happening in the background. Was it the autonomic nervous system? Yeah, it's amazing. The miracle, really.
Yeah. So there's some connection between the eyes and the heart. When you soften your eyes, there's some way that you also soften your heart. And what I'm struck by, listening to you is, whatever happened with that tree, the mind said, wow, that's a big tree, how long it's been here, so forth. But my sense is that the tree touched you, the significance touched your heart. And then the mind, makes a comment about it, which kind of expresses that. But when you're like gazing softly, your heart is more available to be touched by what it sees. It's not quite the same as kind of intensely scrutinizing. It's different than kind of that open receptivity. So thank you, Nate.
Yeah, I just real briefly, you said something about joy, and that's the kind of feeling I got when I saw this tree. And if anybody wants to check it out, it really is like a celebration to life. It's this willow tree on University Drive. I think I had mentioned it in the past, nearest the campus, but wow, it is just like that thing is truly magnificent. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, being touched by the presence of what is around you. Being open to that. All right, anybody else want to talk about what they noticed, what they experienced? Robbie.
Well, I also did some walking under a tree in my backyard. It's a very familiar place. I've lived here for 30 years, and it's still full of leaves. It's been very dry here, but when I was walking, I was almost surprised at how damp the ground was, and the leaves that had fallen were all sticking to my feet. And then I took a step and it was so warm. And I looked down and and it was just this mottled sunlight coming through. So there were these little patches where suddenly all this warmth was on my foot. And it was so surprising that the sun was able to do that through this massive, it's a big old maple tree. Um, so I guess the surprise for me was just how many unfamiliar experiences I had in a very familiar spot. I hadn't really thought of the land as sloping, and yet I felt myself going downhill a bit, and partly because I was so intentional in my walk that I was putting one foot in front of the other and as if on a tightrope. And I was really struggling with balance. And I thought, why am I imposing this walk on myself that's making it so hard to do? So then I kind of shifted into finding a more balanced gait. And yeah, it was playful. And yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. I love
Yeah.
that of the sunlight coming through and warming your foot. That's just beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it occurred to me that, to talk about walking softly, the word saunter kind of comes to mind as a word that describes kind of the walking, the soft walking that can be done where you're not in a hurry to get anywhere. And yet it's very natural. The sauntering walk. Anyone else want to comment on walking or gazing? Okay, Bob,
Hi, can you hear me?
can hear you.
Great. So tonight you said the word aperture,
Yes.
a meditation, and that reminded me of sort of what I noticed in my experience this week, which was the staying with awareness. Sometimes it felt like, and you could just see it's like just a hairs away from fusing back with whatever was going on, and sort of losing yourself, that sense of yourself. Versus,
Fusing with the thought.
yeah, like just, and I could just see it, like, and almost know, like, okay, I'm gonna, I'm, I'm gonna lose this in a second, and that would happen. Typically, highly correlated to the excitement of whatever it was that was, being noticed.
And there's a
Um,
feeling there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there definitely is. And versus other times when the aperture feels wide open, where anything can sort of come and go. I can almost laugh about what's coming up. It almost seems like there's so much space, and like, oh, there's that ridiculous thought again. I don't have to abide by it. I don't have to go with that. It's amazing the variability in that sort of deeper dimension, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I don't know, maybe Sunday night, so I'd gone through an experience where it's sort of an emotional experience, and I noted I could feel closed hearted, but I could see it, I could feel that. I noted that was happening. And the ability to self sort of soften didn't seem to be working. And so I guess what it almost took in this case was being with my significant other, and she took a step back from me, and like I had the ability to, suddenly I saw her, but saw her from a deeper place, and it just seemed to pop whatever that was. And then I really saw her, and then I noticed suddenly it became alive again in here. Whatever was closed, I had known. Like usually, I don't feel closed usually, so it was notable that I had felt that way, and it's like it popped, and I was like, wow, I feel like myself again. But it took, your beloved to, in this case, to help me sort of pull out of that and soften. So she helped me soften.
She helped you soften. She
Yeah.
helped you plants.
Yeah, right.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that was it. I just wanted to share that.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. And that notion of gazing from a deeper place, like something, eyes are kind of amazing that way, I think. The way they connect to all different aspects of our being, and sometimes we can really look from a deeper place. So thanks for reminding us of that. Anyone else? Gazing, walking, or what you noticed just when I was talking about, the liveness of the body, how that showed up for you or didn't. Can talk about that. So much of our suffering is in our heads, in our ideas, in our ideas. And when you submerge yourself in the body, you're kind of just like your cat or dog. I'm sure they have thoughts going on, but much less than we do. And I often, can kind of feel as my dog's just there. She's open. She's not probably a lot of thoughts in her head. She's just being a body, breathing, smelling. The sensate world is everything to her. And she's just there, And there's something comforting about that. I actually think the most natural feeling tone of consciousness is a kind of happiness, just a kind of contented, happy place. But that is our natural state. And some people think I'm insane when I say that because we actually, as human beings, spend so little time in that state. We have so talked ourselves out of it. Literally with our minds, we've talked ourselves out of well-being, the well-being that is right there in our embodied being as we sit and breathe and let the light come into our eyes, let the smells come into our body, let everything kind of be registered and known. And there's nothing in that moment that we have to deal with. There's nothing in that moment we have to protect ourselves against. We're just open and awake. And the vibe of that is a happy one. So I like that notion that we talk ourselves out of well-being. Happy is maybe a difficult word. I mean, sometimes happy means different things to different people. Well-being might be closer to what I mean, that there's just the sense of well-being that's right intrinsically in the body. And that's also what we're lowering ourselves down into, like a hot bath, when we actually let ourselves become absorbed in bodily sensations. So Jennifer and Nick, who am I talking with? Nick.
Hey, Mark.
Are you guys under a comforter or something?
Yes.
Yes. I've never thought I wanted to be a dog before, but you made it sound very appealing to be a dog. I walk softly, and I realize in a lot of ways, I'm conscious of doing this, especially in my office, because I'm at the end of a long hallway, and it's almost been a practice for me, but it just, so when I do it, I'm just more present. So it brings me presence. And, I tend to be in a swirl of thoughts sitting at my desk. And it's always been a good practice for me to pause, get up, walk, get a glass of water, whatever. But part of that is just becoming present again and getting the swirl of thoughts out, and taking a break, because I know that I need these breaks. I'm just not very good at it. And so, there's a really distinct difference between walking down the hall when my head is swirling, because I walk very fast and it's boom, 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 and versus consciously, being sort of present to the well-being, and getting out of my head. And it's just a reminder that I need more of that. So
I'm glad you've got that hallway. It sounds like a helpful thing.
mm-hmm.
One thing I notice about, walking in your head versus walking not in your head is usually when I'm in my head, I'm kind of bent forward a little bit. It's literally my forehead is leading me down the hall or wherever, down the street. It's kind of leaning. And so to just take the time to feel your body align with gravity and then walk. So everything's kind of walking in line with gravity. Has such a shift in your mind state with it. You almost can't do that and be lost in your thought. You can't actually, and when you align with gravity, you like just feel all the gravity going down into your feet. And that saunter comes much more naturally as you just let the gravity of your body go to your left foot and then your right foot and your left foot and your right foot. So that's could be maybe a little help in your doing that, is to stop, notice whether the body is actually aligned with gravity, and feel everything sink into the ground as you walk.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. If nobody's dying to talk, why don't we do a little more of the hand thing? I think this is really helpful. People to just fold their hands together and just put your attention right into your hands. I'll just talk you through it again. So just let your attention sink, become absorbed in all this stuff going on in this place we call hands. But then just let the idea of hands and any image you have of your hands just kind of float off and dissolve. So instead, what's there is much more mysterious. It's not clear where the boundaries are anymore. There's a much, more cloud-like experience. Just notice all of that. And then notice when the vision pops back in. And you want to reassure yourself that everything's put together right. You don't actually know which sensations belong to a finger and which belongs to the palm of your hand or which finger. None of that is sorted out. If you try to do it, then the hand will reappear as a hand, which you know to be a hand, because the brain's trying to access that. But if you just relax it out of there, if you just let it drift off. And notice how you feel as you're doing this. What's the feeling of doing this? Is it anxious or calm? Is it enlivening or is it putting you to sleep? Is it joyful or dreary and boring? Just notice. Notice your breath. What happens to your breath when you're really absorbed in the hand? Of course, you're going to have to become unabsorbed to notice the breath. It's okay. By the way, you can do this when you lie down to go to sleep tonight. You can be in your body this way. You can feel the touch points. You can come absorbed in your hands laying on top of each other on your chest, perhaps. And just notice what it does to your breathing. It's so much more useful than thinking all the thoughts that come to you when you lay down, you know? People who fall asleep easily are kind of good at letting go of those thoughts. And pretty soon those kind of hypnagogic images start to roll in that are not quite dreams, but almost, and then you slip into sleep. But just for that moment, you can just feel the comfort of the immediacy of your living body. Just feel that comfort. All right. So that's it for tonight, folks. Be well. Have a great week. Guess it'll be October next time I see you. Isn't that shocking? So, all right.
Thank you.